Hey everyone, welcome to our video, how to choose the right aperture for night photography. Nighttime can provide some of the most stunning and unique photo opportunities, but it can also be one of the most challenging times to capture photos. One of the key elements to get right is the aperture, and in this video, we'll show you how to choose the right aperture to make the most of your night photography. So, let's get started. Please check the description link, I will provide details information. When it comes to night photography, one of the most important camera settings to consider is aperture. Aperture refers to the opening in the lens that allows light to pass through and hit the camera's sensor. In simple terms, the aperture is the hole in the lens through which light enters the camera. It's measured in f-stops, with smaller numbers indicating a larger aperture opening and larger numbers indicating a smaller aperture opening. So, how does aperture affect your photos? Well, the size of the aperture affects the amount of light that enters the camera, which, in turn, affects the exposure of your photo. A larger aperture opening lets in more light and produces a shallower depth of field, which means that only a small part of the image will be in focus, while the rest of the photo will be blurred. A smaller aperture opening, on the other hand, lets in less light and produces a deeper depth of field, which means that more of the image will be in focus. When shooting at night, you'll typically want to use a wider aperture to let in as much light as possible. This is because there is less available light in the environment, and you'll need to compensate by opening up the aperture to allow more light into the camera. However, using a wider aperture can also lead to overexposed photos, especially if you're shooting in a well-lit area. To avoid this, you'll need to balance the aperture with other camera settings, such as shutter speed and ISO. And there you have it, our guide on how to choose the right aperture for night photography.